Hey guys, do you ever have blonde clients that feel like they're not blonde enough? Then keep watching because this video might be perfect for you. For this client, we're just going to do a partial foil, but we're also going to be painting through the ends and giving her a solid money piece on the first 1.5 inches of her hairline. You can follow me over on Instagram at Christy@thecottage. Here's my clients before, and she comes in pretty regularly. Today we're just going to be doing a partial foil, but giving her a little bit more brightness around the hairline. To start off the service, we're just going to be doing a little bit of a chop. She's showing me where she wants her hair cut, but to be safe, especially dealing with blondes that want longer, blonder hair, sometimes they point somewhere and then, they feel like it ends up being too much. So just to start, I'm going to be dropping it down a little bit further than what she's originally wanting, just to play it safe. And then after we do the rough cut and then go on to her color at the very end of the service, we'll go through and clean up the rest of her haircut and make sure the length is where she wants it. But I saw this trick where when you're cutting a decent amount of length off of someone's hair, have them point to it in the very front and then cut exactly where their finger is. That way they can't come back to you and say, oh my gosh, you took off way more than what I wanted. I know we have all been through that. So I've actually been liking doing that because they see where they're pointing at. They cut it exactly, you cut it exactly where they're pointing at. They see that. They can't come back and, be like, oh my gosh, you took off too much, or you chopped my hair, only wanted 1/2 inch off, or whatever. My client is never like that. She's super sweet. I love her, but I know that I've had horrid clients in the past that have completely torn me apart for cutting less than what they even asked for because now they said that I cut off all their hair. I know we have all had clients like that, but anyway, so we're just going to clean up around the edges and just do this rough cut really quickly. For my lightener, I'm going to be using Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 20 volume and Olaplex. And no, I do not ever notice that I feel like it drops it down a level to 10 volume because of adding Olaplex or anything. I still feel like I get amazing lift. Okay, right here I tried having the volume on so you could hear a conversation, but with the music playing in the background, it would be copyrighted or whatever. So I'll just let you know what we're talking about. So she wants to feel nice and bright. So we're kind of going over the size of how big of a money piece to do in the front. She wants it big enough, but not too big that it doesn't feel like she just has this huge blonde chunk in the front. So we kind of decided that this is the perfect amount right here. So, and to be honest, I went through and did the partial foil first, and then I went back through and painted through the whole front hairline piece that we sectioned out. And the reason that I did that is because I know that this bleach swells and I didn't want it to potentially damage any of her hair and cause any breakage or whatever on her hairline, on her money piece or whatever. She does come in pretty regularly, every 8 to 10 weeks or so. So it's not like we have a whole bunch of grow out to work with. So I just wanted to be safe and make sure that I was protecting her hair and go over the hairline last, especially because the hair is a little bit more fine, so it does tend to lighten up a little bit faster. So saying that, I wish that I would have gone through and done the hairline first, but maybe use just 7 volume or 10 volume or something like that. It was just kind of hard to go through with the foils right there and apply the bleach really precisely. So if you're ever going to do this service, then I recommend going through and doing the hairline first and then foiling. So the reason why she decided to do her hairline like this is because last summer we did a complete bleach transformation. She went platinum blonde, and we did that for quite a while, but then she kind of decided, maybe a little bit less grow out. So we kind of started doing just a partial foil of baby lights, and that was just to kind of help blend her roots and not feel like she had to have such high maintenance hair. But now that we're coming back to summer, she's kind of feeling like, do I want to go back platinum or not? I'm not really sure. So we're kind of in this in-between stage of like going back platinum, but not really wanting to commit to like the grow out and, you know, a heavy line of demarcation. So she was thinking like to feel nice and bright, especially right around her face. She just thought that she's going to do this solid money piece. That way she's going to feel nice and bright, because she feels mostly like when she pulls her hair back, she feels a little bit darker just from like the roots and the grow out, whatever. So she feels like if we just do a solid money piece right on the hairline, at least when she pulls her hair back, at least when her hair is down or whatever, she'll feel just really nice and bright and super blonde where it counts, right in the very front. And then she'll still have kind of softer roots throughout the rest of her hair and kind of like a soft kind of root shadow. So that's why we decided to do that today. So if you have clients that feel like they're never bright enough, or they want to go super blonde but they don't want to commit to a full bleach-in tone, then this might be something to try, where you're just kind of doing a heavy, like just completely bleaching out the whole hairline, like an inch, even if it's just like half an inch, whatever the client wants, that they're comfortable with how big of a size. That's something to help your client feel nice and bright, because that's one thing that I feel like with blondes is that they're either never bright or blonde enough, or it's never heavy enough or whatever. So kind of doing this is going to help it feel like they're getting that extra brightness that they're wanting. You guys know I can be long-winded sometimes, so let me at least get into what we're doing for the foil now. We are just going to be doing a partial foil, and I normally do baby lights just to keep it nice and fine, and I feel like that term gets overused. So right now we are actually just doing a very basic foil, slice, and weave. They're not even fine enough to be considered baby lights anymore at this point. So because her grow out is getting a little bit heavier now that it's been a few months since we've done the bleach-in tone, at this point, I'm going to go through with just basic foil weaves and slices. So it's going to be a little bit heavier to get it a little bit brighter up through her root area, because before we were just doing really fine slices and baby lights to give it more of like a root shadow. But now we want to brighten it up a little bit more, because I don't want her to feel like she still has these darker roots. So now that we're getting closer to her part area, you're going to notice that I'm going to be taking even less subsections. So I was taking probably like 1/4 of an inch subsections like when I first started foiling her hair. But now that we're getting closer up to where she's going to be parting her hair, I'm hardly going to be taking any subsections at all. And that's because wherever her hair falls, even though the part might fall generally in the same spot on the same side, it's never going to be the same exact pieces of hair that fall in the same exact spot every single time. So I feel like if you go in with less subsections, pack the foils in a little bit tighter, maybe do them a little bit finer of a foil, just in this like couple of inches right on the part area, then that will ensure that no matter where the hair falls, she's going to have that blonde coverage of highlights on either side. Because what I don't want to happen is, have you ever like foiled someone's hair and you're doing the same exact subsections in between, and then you go to part their hair, or you part their hair exactly where you feel like it should be because that's where the highlights show through the best, but then they correct it and move their part around, and then now maybe some blonde falls on one side but not on the other side or whatever. That's going to help prevent that from happening, because you know, you want to make sure you have that coverage wherever the hair falls. So that's why you'll notice me going in a little bit tighter with my foils, a little bit finer of a weave, finer of slices, and less subsections, just right in this part area. So I'm also going to carry this through just over the area where she parts her hair a few foils, and then I'm going to move to the other side, and that's going to ensure that I know that I've already taken care of where she parts her hair, and I don't have to worry that I'm going to miss anything or she's not going to have the coverage that she needs or anything like that. So we're just going to finish up this little section, and then we're going to turn her and finish on the other side. So I wanted to touch base on something really quickly also. Quite a few people ask what brush am I using for my application, and I'm using the Framar paint brushes, and I really like these because I like the way that the bleach builds on the brush. I feel like I just get better application. I feel like I don't have to work as hard to distribute the bleach evenly, and I also really like that it has the thicker, like, you know what? Oh my God. What am I talking about? Where you hold the brush, the handle. When am I dumb? Um, I feel like with a regular just foil brush, the stem of the brush is too small, and it like makes my hand cramp up by having to like close my hands, my fingers too tight. Where if I have something that's a little bit wider to hold onto, I feel like it doesn't make my hand cramp as bad. So if you have any problems with your hands kind of cramping up or feeling tight from like gripping your hands so tight together, foiling, then maybe try using a paintbrush, because it really helps me out a lot more, and I really like it. I feel like you can get so much more bleach on the brush, and you don't have to keep trying to like build the product up on the brush or whatever, and I feel like I don't have to fight so hard to push the bleach through the hair for my application. So that's why I like using these brushes. If you guys haven't tried them, you should. I really love them. I actually use them for most of all of my services. I rarely use a regular foil brush anymore. So you can see here that I just barely went over to the other half of the head. And so now we're going to turn her and finish foiling up this other side. And then once we're done with that, pop a few foils in the very back. For partial foils, I usually only do maybe like 3-ish foils in the very, very back just to like help blend the roots out in the very back crown area. But because we're doing it a little bit heavier, I want to make sure she feels a little bit extra bright and has a little bit more coverage, especially now that her roots are getting a little bit longer and because she is so much more solid through the ends. So I am going to be putting in a few more foils than what I normally would. And so technically, I feel like when I do a little bit more foils or a little bit heavier above the top half of the head, I usually charge that as like a top foil versus just a partial, because I see some people do partial foils and it's like they're doing these micro slices, foiling the whole half of the head. You could literally be doing a full foil with the amount of foils that you're popping in, but just calling it a partial because you're not foiling the whole head. That's still a lot of work that you're doing. So for me, I really just do, for my partials, I do maybe like 3 foils directly on the hairline, 2 to 3 foils at the very most. And then I just do kind of like the top crown area, like the mohawk section, and then a few in the very back and call it good. That is it. That is all I do for my partials. If they want more than that, then I do like a top foil and then that's an upcharge. Stop overworking, stop undercharging. Just because you're foiling half the head doesn't mean it's not as much work as a full foil. Okay, sorry about this. This angle here really isn't very good. I didn't adjust my camera, but right here I was really just trying to figure out, do I want to start applying in the front of the hairline? Do I want to apply in the back of the hairline or whatever? And I didn't start in the front because I didn't want to like paint it down onto her forehead or the side of her face or anything like that. So that's why I started it in the back. And this is why I realized that I wish I would have just done this in the very beginning of the service, because it's kind of hard to like, mess with the foils or whatever. So I just ended up putting a foil against where I just foiled her hair and I flipped it back and kind of secured it. And now you can see a little bit better now. And then I'm going to just take little sliver sections down the whole side of her head. I'm going to paint all of her roots and then just kind of feather through where she has her natural into where we've foiled previously. But I'm just trying really hard not to overlap, but it's, kind of impossible when we've done such fine foils in the past. So now I just have that foil in the very, very back that I placed over the foils that I just did. That way it will help protect your hair and not really mess with the foils that we just applied. And so I'm just going to go over her roots and then flip everything back and kind of feather through her line of demarcation. And then this is going to sit for probably like, I think this only really ends up sitting for probably about like 20 minutes or so. Her hair is pretty naturally light. I know it doesn't look too light because of how blonde her hair is, but she is naturally probably like a level 7. She's not very dark at all, so her hair really doesn't have to sit for too long. So we're just going to finish this up and then we'll move to the other side and do the same thing. All right, so here's her full front of her face. I just put some foils over it to help the heat and help it lighten her hair nicely, because I did not remix my bleach just because I felt like it would be safer not having a fresh bowl and to prevent any damage. So on her whole hairline, I should have mentioned that before, but I put the foils over her head to kind of incubate it a little bit to help it process a little bit better and a little bit faster, since it isn't fresh bleach and it's probably weakened up a little bit by that point. So now we're just gonna go through, because she wants to feel a little bit brighter. And even though she is pretty bright, I feel like sometimes when people use purple shampoo, you don't really notice it until you have a fresh like highlight at the roots before you tone the hair. But sometimes it's hard to see how much purple shampoo can really dull the hair down or make it a little bit half a shade darker. So we're just gonna go through and paint through some of her ends to help brighten it up a little bit again. So I am doing it a little bit heavier. Normally when I paint through someone's ends just to brighten it up, I just put a few pieces just to lighten it a little bit and add a few little pops of brightness. But because she's doing that big bright chunk right in the front, I am going to go through a little bit heavier handed and paint through more of the ends than what I normally would. That way the brightness is pretty equal from like the front all the way through the ends and the back of her hair, and then still kind of like softer and rootier just right at the top of her crown area. So we're just going to finish this and finish painting through the ends, and then that will be it for her whole service. So you'll see in a second here what I was talking about when I say that the ends get a little bit more dull and slightly darker, like half a shade to a shade darker than the fresh roots that we just do, and that's from the purple shampoo. So usually when that happens, I'll just kind of massage the bleach through the ends of the hair and let that sit for a few minutes just to get that overtone out from any purple shampoo buildup. Okay, for her toning formulation, I'm doing about equal parts of the 10V, 10AA, and just probably like a little bit less of the level 9 and then a small little drop of the rose gold. And I'm putting the level 9 in there because you can see where she still has some of that warmth in her hair. The level 9 is going to help cancel that out a little bit more. It's not going to darken the formulation down at all. It's just going to help conceal any of that extra warmth that's in her hair because we're not bleaching all of her hair out all over the place. Like, you know, when you foil someone's hair and you can see just how bright the roots are and then the rest of the hair still is a little bit darker. Adding a little bit of a level 9 in there is going to help blend that out and just kind of conceal some of that warmth a little bit more. So, and I let that toner sit for probably like 10 minutes. So here you can kind of see how this kind of turned out a little bit better than like the after shot that I took, just because the natural lighting was a little bit too bright. So I just want to show you guys here like how great everything blends. And then she was really, really happy with how nice and bright it was right around the front of her hairline. It wasn't too heavy. You can see here that it actually blends really good with the rest of the foils that we did, and that's because we did it a little bit heavier. So she's not going to feel too dark or shadowy or anything like that in the root area. Everything blends really nicely, and then you can see just how much better her hair got nice and bright through the ends again. So here's her before. Kind of shadowy, rooty, a little bit warm. And then here is the after. Just a really soft shadow at the top. I did not go over with the root shadow or anything. That's just blending in her roots. You can see just how nicely some of those extra brightness, those kind of more wider pieces of hairs from where we went through and painted, that kind of strappier, chunkier piece up at the front, she was really, really happy with. I hope you guys like this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and don't forget to like and subscribe.